My name is Ramine DARABIHA, or you can call that complicated last name. I run product at Halfbrick. We're known for games like Fruit Ninja and Jetpack Joyride and other stuff. And yeah, it's just really nice to see still a room that's like semi-full at this time, so I appreciate that a lot. Thanks. Um, so I want to talk about, our portfolio of games is interesting because we're well known, but and I assume most people in this room have actually played our games, but I also assume that lately you haven't played them maybe quite as much. And so we are known for the quality of our titles. We've made Fruit Ninja is really considered like it's the second biggest game on mobile, I think. And a lot of people have, really enjoyed it. I still do, but it's not quite as fresh. We're known for Jetpack Joyride. We are known for Fish Out of Water. That was thankfully thanks to the Apple feature we had a month ago. Basically, it was on top of the charts for quite a while, and that was nice. And Monster Dash and Age of Zombies, but. Generally speaking, if you look at our games, they're considered high-quality titles and really nice, diverse games. If you look at the diversity of a portfolio, we're not a company that keeps making the same game, making sequels. There's no Fruit Ninja number 5. There's no Fruit Ninja at the beach or any of that stuff. Like we make very different stuff. We're a company that made the same year Fish Out of Water, which is a game that's very, very casual, and the only thing you do is you throw a fish and you watch them bounce on the water. And a few months later, Colossatron, a game about a giant robot snake monster from space who comes and destroys everything. It's a really fast-paced action game. Thank you. You're the one who played it. Thanks, guys. No. So, and so a very broad, diverse portfolio and high-quality games. People like them. They review really well. But I'll get to that. They're not quite long-lasting, many of them. And that's what the talk is about today. So what is great is that we have, we can really back it up when we say we have the most diverse portfolio in mobile. We have this really, really broad reach in terms of what kind of experience you get when you play a Halfbrick game. So the way we like to see it is that, when you say, a Blizzard game, you know what to expect. It's a good quality title. It's going to be awesome. It could be a different genre from before and stuff, but you know that it's going to be a good thing. If you look at Valve, you know what kind of caliber you're getting. If you look at Nintendo, it could be very diverse. It's not just kiddie games. It's going to be Mario, but then you have F-Zero and Star Fox and, other more difficult things and stuff. So we're trying to go for that kind of vibe, but we haven't been really great at conveying that so far. And so this is about this. So the problem we have is we have great games, but that's it. And if you look at today's mobile market, that's not enough. And so we get a lot of requests from people like, there's a perception that we're an iOS-centric studio. And today's market, that's very much a problem. So it took us a year to port Fish Out of Water to Android. It took us a year to port Jetpack Joyride to Android as well. And Colossatron is now on Windows Phone and stuff like that. So it's coming now. And so there's that perception of really this like isolated thing, and like some platforms are better than the other. And of course, that's not great when you want to be diverse and reach a lot of people. But a bigger problem we have is that we have self-contained experiences. And that stems from this legacy of how people used to make games. You can run through the entire game of Jetpack Joyride in 2 hours if you're good. You can play every single mission and buy every single costume and be done with it in 2 hours, if you know what you're doing. You can do the same pretty much with Fruit Ninja and reach your best score and just plateau at that game and just be done with it around that time. You can do that with Fish Out of Water and reach a perfect 10 in 2 hours and be done with it. You can do that in Colossatron, finish the campaign 2 hours, same thing. So they're great games and people really enjoy them. And it's kind of like if you think of like traditional gaming being packaged goods versus games as a service, being more like the way you do a series, for example. So like traditional game equal movie and series is like this more progressive, continuous relationship. People see your games as like a great classic movie that they enjoyed that one time long ago, and then they're done with it. And that's the relationship we have with people at the moment. And that is a problem we're trying to address. So we're trying to transform the way we are thinking about our products, about our portfolio, about our company, to become more of a relationship people want to keep and maintain, basically. So, in the analogy we had, all of our product managers was saying like if you love Fruit Ninja and you stop loving it, that's a failure on our side, and it doesn't make any sense. There should be no reason for that to happen. If a person went, I love pizza, and then suddenly they went, like, I don't love pizza anymore, that is clearly a failure on, like, a system that you're using. So this is about this. So how do you address a problem like this? It's an interesting problem we have because we have a very large user base. And so you can't just go and iterate on a 4-year-old game like Fruit Ninja. You can't go and say, OK, we have whatever, 200 million people who expect Fruit Ninja to be Fruit Ninja and be like, OK, we're just going to go and fuck with the game. Like, you can't do that. And so we're thinking, well, how do we approach that? And so I'm going to try to explain basically how's the approach and how we're transforming the entire company through one game actually currently. So the solutions, of course, to how do you transform a company and how do you make sure that the portfolio that you have remains fresh, well, they're actually fairly obvious. One of them, and that's the thing you have, of course, in most gaming companies, is let's increase the R&D spend. Let's look at new technologies, let's put new stuff. We're going to look at multiplayer, we're going to look at games as a service, we're going to have analytics and backend, retention, and whatever crap. And it's fine, but that's not enough. So I'm going to put that in context in a second. A second way of lengthening, increasing the relationship you have with people is, of course, to look at them as a service. So let's move away from the contained product, model, and let's think of them as OK, we're going to have events and regular updates and go for the, kind of like, let's say, a Puzzle and Dragon kind of model where you're going to have an event for 2 weeks and rotate that, have another partnership and stuff. But that's not enough either, because if you just add content, then you're not going to really renew your game. You're just going to, have more of the same. So look at that in a second as well. And lastly, and that's actually the easiest thing to do, is to try to understand better your value proposition. And it's really interesting because that's a concept that keeps changing really fast in mobile. So if you look at Fruit Ninja, Fruit Ninja used to be the best game, pretty much with Angry Birds actually, and also at being, you're bored and you're at the bus station or something, and you have 2 minutes and you pop a game out of your mobile, and that was the game for that. Nowadays, there's games that are really, really good at that, like the Piano Tiles and Flappy Bird and stuff like that, that just have a really simple, tight game loop and can answer that need really well. So really finding your value proposition at that point and understanding what is it you're trying to ship to people, is very, very important. And so it's just taking a few steps back and trying to see that. So I'm going to go through all these things, actually, and how we're approaching that. So back to the R&D problem. So clearly, we need to reinvent ourselves and reinvent our titles, because the other option was, let's just not do that and create new games. And downright, we just discarded the option, because it's like, well, what would we abandon on Fruit Ninja and Jetpack Joyride? That is just a stupid thing. So clearly, we should just improve what we have. So we started by looking at our company goals. What is it what do we want to achieve? We want to have a very creative portfolio. We want to have very fresh games. We want to make them engaging. We want them to be creative and not to be money-centric. So we want to keep that whole fun thing we had going on, still have going on, and build on that. Then looking at the game goals. How do the games align with that? How do we make sure that the game remains creative? How do we make sure that we're going to have new game modes and new content regularly? How do we make sure that we not just create, like we did in the past year, new blades and backgrounds in Fruit Ninja, and new costumes in Jetpack Joyride? How do we scale that? And that led us to more detail of how do we create a plan for each game to redefine that. That's the first approach. So you can actually create a plan, basically fairly straightforward, to update a 4-year-old game or a portfolio of many older games to patch that. So that's the first step. The second thing is, and so we decided to take our weakest game actually at the time in the portfolio, Age of Zombies, as a way of testing that. So starting with the assumption we can't do that in Fruit Ninja, you can't go and mess with a massive user base and stuff. Let's take the weakest one. Let's take Age of Zombies and play with that. It's okay, we can fail with this thing. It's not a problem. So we started by thinking, well, is Age of Zombies a good game? And the answer was yes. We all enjoyed playing it. I was like, all right, well, let's keep that game. That's great. We can fix it to make it a bigger game. And then let's look at the value proposition of that game. So we looked at all the other action games and the dual stick shooter games and stuff on mobile and not mobile as well, and thought well, we're not trying to reinvent to create something revolutionary with this game. Age of Zombies is not an original game. But it's a very fun game. It's got a funny story. It's got well, funny one-liners, and the funny characters, and people love the zombie T-Rex, and there's funny weapons, and you can travel through time and go different time and space and stuff, and that's interesting, and people want that. So why don't we just make the ultimate version of that, make the best action game on mobile? And that should be our goal. And so we threw everything else away that wasn't that. And we also wanted to do another thing, which was, well, if we're trying to pilot, transforming the company through this, it needs to become the most updated Halfbrick game. So it wasn't so much about updating Age of Zombies anymore. It's about proving points, validating stuff, validating our strategy in a very rapid manner. And so that became the value prop of our game. And we actually conveyed that when we rebooted the game 2 months ago. It's like, we're going to fuck with the game. It's going to keep transforming all the time, and we'll see where it goes. And hopefully we make a really good action game out of it. Third point, of course, in rebooting an older game is creating new tech. And by that, I don't mean, update the graphics or make it run smoother or increase the resolution. I mean stuff that supports the goals that you have. And I'll get to that actually now. If that clicks, please click. Thank you. So I'm going to go through a series of the assumptions we've proven in the past 2 months and what that's meant for us. And that's going to give you maybe a better understanding of strategy I have Halfbrick for this stuff. So the first thing is, if you looked at the older pre-reboot Age of Zombies, it was very story-driven, which is weird. It's Age of Zombies got awards for the story. It was one of its main unique selling points, actually, is that it had a funny story with this kind of Duke Nukem kind of character who'd go and say these manly jokes, macho jokes and stuff, and travel through time and make all these remarks about the culture there and stuff like that. And it stood out. And my assumption was that it was actually a very alienating thing in the game for 2 reasons. One is, if you're playing a mobile game and you want to deliver on the ultimate action game on mobile as a value proposition, well, having some dude that's saying macho stuff 30 seconds before you can actually play is going to be an obstacle to that. And the second problem we had with this was that it really, focused us on the whole male white Western teenage gamer thing, and the whole Duke Nukem FPS gamer, which is cool. They loved it, and we got awards for that. But then again, it was like, we can't deliver on our goals with that thing. And so assumption number 1, story has to go. Let's remove some story stuff. And we did. And so we did the first update. We removed about 50% of the story, and no one noticed. And retention went up, and people liked it better. And the fact is that we had, some stereotypes in the Japan episodes and things that were just plainly offensive to women or Asian people and stuff. And I was like, that's clearly a problem. So we removed that, and we didn't have those remarks anymore, and that was awesome. So we had to remove a core component of the game that was a unique selling point, and we got awarded for, and that took time to build and to prove a new point, and that was really interesting. So make sure that whatever vision you used to have is not bullshit. Make sure that actually sustains what you want to achieve now, and make sure you're not cornering yourself into some corner just because of legacy or anything. So that was one interesting lesson from that. I Want to Eat Your Brains is from our President Evo update. I'll get to that in a second. It was pretty cool. That's actually about marketing. So the second thing was that in today's industry, because, well, as you know, UI costs are going up. Getting users is very difficult and stuff. So marketing is tough. So that means that you can't grow organically anymore, or not quite as easily as when the game launched. So Halfbrick launched Age of Zombies 4 years ago initially. So this started, programming-wise, it started as a GBA title that got released as a PSP game. So that's the thing that was before the PS Vita, and then got shipped as an iPhone game. So this is a 4-year-old game we're talking about. And at the time, organic growth was easy. There weren't that many games, competition was pretty low and stuff. Nowadays, not so much. So that means that, okay, if you want to get users and make the ultimate action game for mobile, you're going to have to aim for featuring, because you want to increase your ranking that way, and that's going to have an acceleration effect. So we started aiming our updates to be featured, simply. It's like, what gets us featured? Well, let's look at the calendar. Okay. Well, the first thing, there wasn't anything special. So we looked at a way of getting featured for that. And it's like, well, let's make a big deal out of it. Let's make it that's a reboot. It's not just an update. And let's make partnerships around that. So we had a partnership with Razer, for example, to add the MFI controller support. And the MFI controllers are these gamepad support, basically, that Apple and also Google nowadays are pushing for their platforms. And it turns out that there hasn't been huge traction. It's still a new thing, so we're a leader in that, basically. So that gave us enough reason to be featured. In fact, the Apple guys featured us as a new game and not as an update, because it was so old, there's like, it might as well be new, that's fine. And so that was one way of gaining traction for that update. And we're really happy we got featured and improved our point and stuff. It was awesome. The second update was more difficult because it came the day after the Apple feature that we got. So we were featured on the Apple Store for 2 weeks, and it was great. But it's obviously difficult when you give away millions of copies of your game and stuff to get back on the feature thing right after. So we're trying to think of what's a good way of doing that. We looked at the calendar, and hey, 4th of July. So that was awesome. We're like, well, let's aim for a 4th of July update. And hopefully that will get us interesting enough in that category of zombie shooting action game and stuff. If we can do something cool, we'll probably get featured, and that's a way of doing that. We were gonna do an update anyway and content anyway. Might as well be something that will probably get us featured. So we did the Resident Evil update, and Resident Evil was a zombie themed thing where Abraham Lincoln travels back through time and fights zombie George Washington, who's been infecting the timelines. And it's a really quick thing. There's a few new levels. It wasn't a massive update or anything, but it was a fun new story and stuff. And got us featured again, and it got us back on the charts. And we're very happy with that. So that's interesting because it also means that there's a shift in the way we're thinking about marketing and branding around this game, and games in general. That what we're doing is usually people think of marketing as something they need to do once they've built their game and their feature. We're doing exactly the opposite here. We're looking at how will we market this thing, what's a good way of doing that, we will build this thing. And so that was a fundamental shift into the approach, the whole pipeline that we have for making games. Third thing, trickle-down effect. That's interesting. You keep hearing stuff about focus, and it's true at a certain stage only. And so we had the assumption that building for more platforms will yield more user acquisition. It sounds logical, but the problem is that that goes in direct contradiction with the thinking of like, if you just focus really well on iOS, you'll do better there because you're focusing. So we had to prove that. And the argument that we had was like, well, if you have an Android phone or an Amazon phone or you have an Ouya or whatever, well, you're not the only person in your household with that one device. People have other devices around them. So let's say I'm targeting, and we did that especially on purpose on the Ouya. So we changed the strategy, and we made it that we'll just ship Age of Zombies on everything we can. And so we took it pretty seriously, actually. We shipped the game on iOS as a universal SKU, on Google Play, on the Kindle Store, on the Kindle Fire TV, on the Kindle phone, which I don't know if it's released yet, but anyway, it works. It works on Android TV as well, and Ouya, and we shipped on the Samsung Store, and the Tegra Zone, also the NVIDIA thing. So it was pretty much everything you could do, we shipped it. And we actually proved that trickle-down effect, that people, obviously, in their family and their household and their friends and stuff, they all have different devices. So people went, oh, that Age of Zombies game is really awesome, or whatever. I like that President update or whatever. And you should try it, and they could get it on the device that they had. And it was really simple. So that Ouya update was really interesting, because we shipped it a few days after we shipped the Resident Evil update. And what happened was that, well, Ouya has a moderate amount of users, but they have a lot of early adopters, and they have a lot of very vocal players who are very dedicated to that console and stuff. And so what happened was that people got excited for that, and that had an impact on the charts on iOS and Android. And that's awesome. So point proven. So basically, if your game is live, and you know what you're doing at that point, and there's no new systems that you're building, there's not going to be like fundamental shifts all the time and stuff, it's okay to ship on more things. And that's a really interesting lesson. Whereas, of course, if you're soft launching a title and stuff, focus and speed is going to be your focus. So this is a very different thing, and that was really interesting to realize that. point number 4, we keep saying that our business is not about making games. Our business is about the promise of fun to people. And that means that if they turn on their phone and they see a bunch of icons, and they're going to see like 60 different icons on their screen, our business is to make sure that you click that icon because you know it's going to be more awesome than the next icon. What that means is that the reason people don't play some of our older titles anymore is because they're done with it. There's no reason to go back to that. If you reach your high score in that thing and there's no way you're going to ever beat that high score again, you're not going to go back to that game. It was a nice experience, but you're done with it. In opposition, if you look at some other titles where you like build a farm or build a base and all that stuff, there's always a reason, there's a goal, there's a reason to come back and keep doing things and stuff. So you have this sort of like structure and objective and all that. There's a purpose for you to come back to the game. That's why they keep pulling you back with push notifications, local notifications, going, oh, your farm's almost ready and stuff. Come back, and like, there's a reason for you to open that up. So it's useful. So people want, and we assume the promise of fun, the promise of there's something nice and interesting and cool to do for you in that app right now. And this was proven partly by what we just did with rebooting the game and adding the zombie T-Rex, like in that first update. So people really liked the zombie T-Rex that we had in the game. It's one of the boss fights and stuff. And one of the classic lines in the game was, "Holy balls, a zombie T-Rex." And people really liked it. And we are like, well, if we're doing a reboot, like we might as well make the zombie T-Rex playable. That'll be like a nice fan service thing. And it won't be like a lot of extra work. It's just like a cooler piece of content than something else. So we did that, and we did the Resident Evil thing that people also really liked, even though it was like a simple level update. And so we assume like this is more about building hype and fan service than it is about the content. It's okay to have 3 levels if they make sense in the context of the experience people want to consume. Basically, if it's 4th of July and you're the cool 4th of July update and you have a funny high-level concept, people will like that better than some other update. So we started leveraging that. And we've been proving that more and more. So one thing is that we built a trailer for the game explaining the reboot of like how it fits in the context of Barry Steak Fries, that's the name of our character, who's across 3 of our titles, actually. He's a hero of Jetpack Joyride and Monster Dash. The story of Barry Steak Fries, and we put that trailer on YouTube, and people really liked that. I created some hype for the update, and now people are like, asking the other games, so what's Barry up to next and stuff. And like, so we're creating that sense of hype and anticipation around updates again, which we haven't had for that game in a very long time, because there were bug fixes and one new weapon and another level or whatever, and people are like, wow, what are you going to do next? And so, well, based on what I said earlier, of course, you look at a calendar and you see dates like Talk Like a Parrot Day and stuff like that, and we're like, that's pretty cool, so we should do something. And so sense of hype is important, but that also means that we're increasing the demand for new and fresh and exciting content. And that means that we need to start increasing speed. So once you've proven and you've validated what you want to do, well, of course, you can get better at it. So that's where we are now. What that really means is that you need to improve your processes and tools and pipeline and make sure that you have a tighter feedback loop. And so that's what we're starting to do now. The previous update, that Resident Evil one, took a lot less time than the previous one did because we knew what we were doing. We knew that, okay, we're going to do this amount of levels, this amount of characters, weapons, stuff. And so now we're building a process. And we learned a lot from companies like Gung Ho, where their update strategy for Puzzle & Dragon is beautiful. They can rotate partnerships every 2 weeks, and they talk to a new brand and go like, oh, you want to work with us? That's great. We have 2 monsters for you and 1 dungeon. There's going to be 5 unique items and stuff. It's going to take us 3 weeks of time. 1 artist is going to work this amount of time. It's going to be like, whatever, 2 man weeks to get that thing done. This is about the ROI you get, the amount of impressions you do, and that they packaged and productized the way they do updates. And that's awesome. They have a really strong sense of what it is to improve that game. So that's a really interesting thing to learn and prove as well. So validation of that strategy. I have a giant disclaimer on those numbers, by the way, but it's cool. Before the update, Age of Zombies had 1,000 weekly active users. Not much. So the joke at the office was like, people would ask me, so what, you're updating Age of Zombies? How many users does that thing have? I would be, 5, give or take. And it was a great game. I'm really grateful people who played it were engaged with it, but the reality of it wasn't a great business for us at that point. Post-update, with these two updates, we're not 2 million MAU. We're pretty happy with that. Giant disclaimer, we had an Apple feature that's obviously skewed those numbers. So it's not like, do what I say and you'll get 2 million users. That's not going to happen. It's, we're very lucky that we're able to leverage portfolio to that kind of stuff. But those numbers are stable. And that's really cool. It's not like, oh, we had that feature, people got the game, and now they're going away because it's old and, and crappy again and stuff. That's not the case. So that's a great validation of that approach, is that actually we should keep trying making things fresh and new again, that people really, really like that. But that's creating new problems, and that's really interesting. So the first thing is that rank fluctuation. So basically, like, building around features is awesome. You get more users, people like it and stuff, more reviews and stuff, and you get the trickle-down effect with the other platforms and stuff. But the problem we see now is extreme rank fluctuation. Is that because the shape of the App Store is so different than before, ranking is just extremely different. And we haven't cracked the whole equivalent of SEO for the App Store. Essentially, update equals like really good ranking, and then we have to do another update. So we gotta get better at the speed thing I was talking about and the targeting thing I was talking about, but it's not enough. So we gotta get smarter at this. And probably over-the-air updates is gonna be a solution. I'll talk about that in a second. The second thing is that we've validated part of our strategy, which is like people want more of this game, and we can do the cool new stuff, and people like it, and we can do more of that. The problem is that we can't do that forever. So we'd run into a problem that some other games have had of like, if you'd offer 300 maps in Age of Zombies, it'd be meaningless. We could do that for a bunch of updates, 10, 20 maybe, but after a while, it'd be like, okay, well, whatever. Now they're in space, who cares? So we gotta start designing things now that will be new systems that will be more interesting, challenge systems and mission systems and multiplayer stuff and leagues and leaderboards and stuff that's more interesting than just the story and survival stuff we have at the moment, basically. So we gotta be better at having this kind of like event stuff in there, like you've seen in Japanese RPGs, for example. But it's really cool. We've validated that an older game can be made fresh and relevant again. And what that means is that, well, really two things. We gotta try to answer new questions about the game. We gotta try to answer, new technical challenges. So we're looking at, for example, over-the-air technology, which means that we can update our games and its new, content, levels, assets, weapons, whatever, without app updates, and do that even more rapidly, because, well, we've proven people want that. So we're building that at the moment. Another thing that we're thinking is that this is actually a really cool game to play in the living room concept, in the living room context, because of the Ouya update. People are like, I actually like this game better in the living room, and it makes sense because it's a dual stick shooter, and so you want to play with a gamepad with 2 joysticks. That's just perfectly normal. So multiplayer makes sense. So we're gonna have to, explore that branch of the game, and of course, doing multiplayer on mobile is like a difficult thing. So we're trying to figure out that strategy now. And so we'll keep using Edge Zombies as our way of doing R&D basically at Halfbrick and trying stuff that could work in the new games. And of course, what we have to do now is to start applying those lessons in the rest of our portfolio. And so you can expect, of course, the same approach now to be done in Fruit Ninja, in Jetpack Draw, and in Fish Out of Water, and the other stuff. And that's going to be very, very interesting, because we're going to have to do a similar kind of transformation and promise to things that people have come to expect, being normal and always the same thing. So we're going to have to change that. And that's what we'll do in the coming year, basically. That is all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Questions? Oh, there's got to be some questions.
There's one.
Hi. So what do you think is the optimal interval between updates? And also in regards to over-the-air updates, do you think that you will get the same chart boost effect from an update that is just over-the-air as opposed to actually incrementing versions and being new on the App Store?
It's I don't have a great answer for that because that's something we're going to have to validate. So anything I say on this is going to be like we'll try it out and stuff, and we'll see what the effect's going to be. The first thing about the pacing of updates is so far more is better. And the cool thing with iOS 7, for example, and 8 now, and of course Android also, is that basically auto updates are a thing. So as long as you keep your SKU small enough, should be a negligible impact. But we're not at a stage yet where we're doing like daily updates on code and stuff. Like we've considered doing things like extreme automation of like, you know, have like our tool chain, like just take the latest version and like publish that on via the like Apple Publishing API or something, and then just ship that continuously, like you do in the. Like it sounds insane for mobile, but it's not insane on the web. Like Facebook does like 3 releases a day or something, so you could do that in theory. But right now we're at like a 2-3 weeks update cycle, and that's fine. So we're gonna get it down to maybe 1 or 2 weeks and see where that goes. But of course we have a bottleneck with like QA and stuff like that. So basically we'll just see like what we're comfortable with and how that behaves. We don't know at the moment. As for OTA updates, so very valid question. We've done tests of that technology in Bears vs. Art, and we've done it only for events. So it's been you got the game, and suddenly it's the Easter event, for example. And the response we've seen for that has been really good. Is people just like to see it, as long as it's coupled with like correct messaging. So for example, you make sure that the game tells you it's the Easter event. You want to have local notifications that tell you, oh, the event's gonna run out in 24 hours or something, and you want to have cross promotion for the event the same way as you'd have for an app update. And then we've seen similar takeoff so far. And of course, there's a question as to how often you can do this. So if we streamline creating weapons and maps and whatever for this game, in theory, we could ship them as fast as the level designers ship them. You probably don't want to do that. So we're going to explore that, basically. Yep. Do you have one?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry. So have you noticed any correlation with like the longevity of the game in regards to being free and having in-app purchases versus having like a paid premium business model?
I'm sure we've seen it. I'm not sure we've understood it yet. As a theory thing, we are thinking of it as of course, if you pay it, you're going to have a sunk cost philosophy, as in like, I bought this thing, I'm going to, use it for a while, and then that should yield like a longer, midterm retention from that thing. Whereas for a free game, basically, you're just going to have this like, okay, like X% are going to convert, that's it. And then you're going to have this longer term funnel. But we are not at a stage currently where we're doing that type of segmentation to understand that. And the tests I'm talking about here are about Age of Zombies. That's a game that's currently just paid. That said, we did have a switch to free for 2 weeks because of the Apple feature. We didn't see substantial differences in the way people play the game. So, but that could be because it's an older game and stuff. So we're not quite sure yet.
One more question.
So you talked about a multi-platform strategy in terms of getting more eyes in the game.
Yes.
But I didn't see Facebook in there. Are they no longer as relevant, or it's too much effort, or?
No. Facebook is a very interesting platform to us, or I should say, web is a very interesting platform to us. So I think the Chrome store is very interesting because the Chrome store runs, and you can build your game with the same tech as you would if you run it on Facebook. And Chrome Store is where you get your apps for a Chromebook. And Chromebooks are extremely cheap laptops that people are buying more and more now for education, right? So if you're a kid who goes to school and stuff, you're gonna have to buy a Chromebook in the next 2 years. So do I want to be there? Yeah. Is there competition on the Chrome Store? No. So they're very interesting platforms for us. But you consider like the Asian market, and there's still and South America, there's still very much that internet cafe culture. So yeah, we want to be on those markets and be available to play on the browser. Is this as much of an easy fit as it is for us to do iOS Android at the moment? No. We do have, so our technology, our in-house engine is capable of porting to pretty much everything. It's just we had to start our updates with the lowest hanging fruit, basically. So we started iOS Android, but we did expand Android to like the limits of Android basically, which we're not doing Android Wear at the moment because, well, there's no point to it. Yet not for this game, at least not in this current form factor. So web is definitely going to be a thing, and PC is going to be a thing, and we're considering consoles as well because we've ideated that with the UEA now. So it's going to be an exercise of, let's moving forward of adding more platforms, making that automatic, so we can keep doing the other platforms as well, and sustaining that with the over-the-air updates and new content. Basically. Yeah. Thank you. I think that's all. Thanks.